Most fans think they understand what Avengers Doomsday is about, and that confidence is exactly why the movie is being underestimated. At first glance, it looks like another large-scale Avengers story, another chapter in a long saga of heroes saving what remains of order. But hidden beneath that surface is something far more deliberate, something Marvel is not advertising loudly on purpose. As one line quietly suggests, the end doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes with silence. That sentence alone reframes everything. If you think the apocalypse is just a spectacle, keep watching, because what it truly represents changes how the MCU wants you to think going forward. And if you enjoy uncovering the layers most viewers miss, like the video, comment your first thought, and share this with the Marvel fan who swears they've already figured it out. When you hear the word Avengers, your mind automatically goes to legacy figures like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, characters whose arcs were built around sacrifice, clarity, and resolution. Tony Stark famously said, "If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it," and the MCU lived by that philosophy for years. Doomsday arrives in a post-Stark, post-Steve Rogers world where that certainty no longer exists. The heroes left behind are not symbols yet, they are questions. Sam Wilson carries the shield, Doctor Strange carries knowledge that frightens even him, and characters like Spider-Man carry consequences no one remembers but him. Doomsday matters because it is the first Avengers story that fully embraces that instability. What makes this film quietly dangerous is how it reframes power. In earlier phases, villains like Thanos represented overwhelming force, a clear external threat. He told us, "I am inevitable," and the narrative was built to challenge that statement. Doomsday, however, shifts away from brute force toward inevitability as an idea. Whether it is Kang's echoes still haunting the timeline or the looming presence of Doctor Doom, the threat is no longer just physical. It is structural, as one chilling line implies. You can't fight what's already written. That single concept elevates Doomsday from an action event into a philosophical turning point for the MCU. Marvel characters are not just fighting enemies anymore. They are fighting relevance. Characters like Ant-Man, once comedic relief, now exist in a universe where jokes no longer guarantee survival. Captain Marvel, once framed as an ultimate solution, now feels like a variable instead of an answer. Even Hulk, the embodiment of raw strength, has been recontextualized as controlled, restrained, almost hesitant. Doomsday uses these characters not to prove how strong they are, but to ask whether strength still solves the right problems. That tension is never shouted, only implied, which is exactly why it works. There is a moment hinted at in Doomsday that captures this perfectly, when a hero reportedly says, "We keep reacting." When did we stop deciding that line is not about one character? It is about the Avengers as a concept. The team was once proactive, united by belief. Now they are fragmented, responding to consequences set in motion long ago. This is where the movie stops being about villains and starts being about responsibility. The question is no longer who can stop the threat, but who should, and at what cost. Doctor Strange becomes especially important here. He has already seen futures collapse, choices rot from the inside, and victories that feel worse than defeat. When he warns that some outcomes survive only because we refuse to look at them, Doomsday leans into that discomfort. Strange is no longer the man with the answers. He is the man who knows the price of asking the wrong question. That shift in his role mirrors the MCU itself, moving from certainty toward caution, from solutions toward consequences. Halfway through this discussion, it is worth speaking directly to viewers who appreciate stories that reward attention and patience. If you enjoy narratives built on character evolution, long-term payoff, and emotional complexity, the ebook 50 series to watch before you die is a natural recommendation. It is curated for people who value storytelling the way Marvel once taught us to, where arcs matter and endings earn their weight. If Doomsday has you rethinking what makes a story meaningful, this book fits that mindset perfectly. Coming back to the film, villains like Doctor Doom are not just threats. They are mirrors. Doom does not simply oppose heroes. He exposes their compromises. Where Iron Man once represented progress through invention, Doom represents control through intellect. Where Captain America stood for moral clarity, Doom stands for brutal consistency. His philosophy can be summarized in one haunting idea: the world doesn't need saving. It needs ruling. That contrast is why Doomsday feels less like a battle and more like a debate with consequences. Even Spider-Man's presence or absence carries weight. Peter Parker exists in a narrative void, unknown, disconnected, yet still driven by responsibility. Everyone forgets you, a line associated with his arc, becomes symbolic of the MCU's larger question: what happens when legacy fades? Doomsday does not answer this directly, but it frames it clearly. Some heroes fight to be remembered, others fight to forget, and that emotional imbalance fuels the story's tension. What Doomsday does better than expected is resist easy closure. Not every conflict resolves, not every character feels complete. That is intentional. The MCU is no longer building toward one final moment. It is building toward endurance. Characters like Black Panther's successors, the Young Avengers, and morally gray figures like Loki exist in a space where identity is fluid. Doomsday tests whether audiences are willing to follow stories without guaranteed triumph. As the narrative tightens, one truth becomes unavoidable: Doomsday is teaching viewers how to watch the MCU again. It rewards attention over hype, context over cameo hunting, and meaning over magnitude. A quiet line sums it up best: the danger isn't losing everything. It's thinking you already have. That sentence defines the film's purpose more than any explosion ever could. By the end, Avengers Doomsday reveals its true importance. It is not a finale, and it is not a reset. It is a filter. It separates stories that matter from noise, characters that evolve from those that stagnate, and audiences who watch from those who engage. That is why it will age differently than people expect. To fully understand where this leads, you need to watch the next video on the channel titled Avengers Doomsday is erasing these MCU characters. It is the missing piece that shows the cost behind these choices and why certain heroes may not survive the narrative shift. Click the video on screen right now to continue this journey while the connections are fresh. Subscribe for more deep Marvel analysis, and tell me in the comments, do you think the MCU is becoming more intentional or simply more selective about who it's telling stories for?